Just letting everyone know that my Twitter account is back. There was a whole thing. Crypto scammers had it for a week. It got suspended, but we're all good now. So if you don't already, you can follow me over there for whatever nonsense I'm getting up with. Also, remember to check out my book club's Instagram account, which is down in the description, and my webcomic over on Webtoons. Yeah, same clothes as last time. I told you I was making it. The Blade itself by Joe Abercrombie is a grimdark fantasy book that was published in 2007. It takes place in your typical fantasy world, a country known as the Union, which is made up of all sorts of different provinces. There's a lot of conflict, a lot of politics, you know the gist. And the world is in a pretty shaky place where we pick up. There's war brewing in the north, the king has grown senile, and there are numerous traitors among his ranks. And we follow multiple POV characters from different backgrounds as they try to exist in this messed up world. The story starts very abruptly following Logan Ninefingers, a barbarian who just got the shit kicked out of him, and is sort of left for dead, so he's sort of on his own trying to figure things out. Logan is special in that he can speak to the spirits, and these spirits lead him to Bayaz, the first of the Magi. Magi, my manga background is messing me up here. No audiobooks here, I don't know how everything is pronounced, bear with me. Anyway, he has reason to go to the capital city of Adua, and wants this big strong man to accompany him, so that's what they're up to. But why are they going to Adua? What's going on in Adua? Jazal is a nobleman and an officer in the city. He spends his days fencing and drinking and courting ladies. It's a lovely time. What isn't lovely is that he knows when the war in the north kicks off, he's probably gonna have to go fight in it. He also seems to have made an enemy out of Inquisitor Glokta, which is never good. Glokta is the other major point of view character. He is a ruthless, cold-hearted man who was once a prisoner of war who was tortured and left crippled, and now he spends his days sort of giving that back to his enemies. And it is his job to weed out the imposters. And once Ninefingers and Bayaz come to town, his search is about to get a lot more interesting. So, The Blade itself is an interesting book. It's obviously the first in the trilogy, and it really feels like it. A lot of times with series, the first book, while it may set up future events, is for the most part standalone. Like, you can read The Final Empire and be satisfied with the story. You can read The Eye of the World and be satisfied with the story. You know, they set up more stuff, but you're like, hey, this felt like a complete experience. This does not feel like that. This is the setup book, this is the world building book, and I have to say, Joe Abercrombie did a really excellent job with it. It's always hard introducing readers to a new fantasy world, because you often have just so much you need to let them know about without it feeling bogged down with exposition or too vague that they get lost. I think by starting out with multiple POV characters, of course we have 3 main ones, but there's actually 3 other ones who serve as minor POVs. All these different characters from all these different areas in life really serves to flesh out the world pretty quickly. Like in most fantasy stories, it does take a while before you really understand everything about this world, but this way, as we're constantly jumping around and learning about these characters, you piece things together in a logical way as events occur. And you quickly become accustomed to the ways of this world. Like I mentioned, this is a grimdark book. There's not much fun to be had in the world of the First Law, as we learn about its history, its politics, and of course its magic. Yes, this book is definitely full of magic, though it is quite light on it, and I think the reason for that is quite fascinating. So if you're unfamiliar, you might have been wondering what the First Law actually is. I didn't know what it was, and when I found out what the First Law was, I found it to be, for lack of a better term, raw as f***. And using magic in this world might sort of interfere with it, so a lot of people just consider it taboo. Most people don't even believe that shit exists anymore. And I love stories like that, where, you know, magic exists, but people don't often want to acknowledge it. But as they will soon come to learn in this book, they may have to start doing so. Yeah, the central conflict of this book, you know, Bayaz coming to town, people not believing who he really is, Inquisitor Glokta trying to get to the bottom of it. All the central characters are sort of dealing with their own stuff and they have their own problems, but they are very slowly being brought together and having their paths and stories intertwine. And that's what this first book sort of builds up to. Then eventually we do see what happens when they all come together, and it's some really, really fascinating and great stuff. Joe Abercrombie, I'm definitely not the first person to say this, but he knows his stuff, man. His writing is absolutely fantastic. The character work here is absurd. It is absurd. Presenting us with a wonderful cast of characters where already after this first book they feel fully realized and have a lot of room to grow and develop over the series. My absolute favorite has to be Glokta. This dude is a straight up villain. He is pretty much evil and ruthless, but not only do you understand where he comes from, but he's so entertaining to watch. I never thought I would be so excited to read torture scenes before, but Joe Abercrombie somehow pulls it off. And when I wasn't necessarily rooting for him, I was still always excited to see what he would do next. I found all of the characters to be great in this book, but whenever I got to one of his POV chapters, I was hyped. Jezal would probably be my least favorite by default, just because, you know, he is more of an arrogant character. He's very naive. He doesn't really know what's up because he just spends his days fencing all the time and staring at booties. But I still enjoyed his stuff, and it's very clear that they are going to be doing a lot more with his character going forward. Well, I know that. I'm already like halfway through the next book. So yeah, amazing cast of characters already, super interesting world building, but like I did say, this very much feels like the first chapter in a bigger story. So that's why the main plot of this one didn't necessarily blow me away, but I don't think it really needed to. It got me super hooked and invested, and yes, this book does have like a few big climactic moments, though I can tell there's some stuff that's cooking that's gonna blow this out of the water. So yeah, absolutely fantastic first book for me. I'm giving this one a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I am very eager to see where the story goes, both in this trilogy and the greater First Law universe, of which there are many, many more books. Just based on this one book, I can tell that Joe Abercrombie is going to be someone I will be keeping my eyes on for a very, very long time. And I would highly recommend it to fans of fantasy, especially grimdark stuff. Though, you know, this is like the go-to one. Most people have already read it. So that, thank you all so much for watching. You can leave your thoughts on anything First Law, as long as you don't spoil me, in the comments down below. And I will see you all soon for a new video.